I got the flame wheel taken apart, got the arms in the parts washer, letting them get cleaned up from all the mud and stuff. Uh, so I've got my 6 motors and actually ended up with 2 spares, one of which isn't a great spare, but still I have 2 extra motors for other things. Got my 6 ESCs there. Back there's the screws and stuff that came out of the flame wheel arms and stuff. And these are the top and bottom plates for the flame wheel. You can see right here all the solder pads, plus and minus, plus and minus. There's just solder pads here for all the ESCs. Everything. This is where the main battery goes, and then each ESC solders to these solder pads. So this bottom plate is basically a power distribution board. I really like that. Now I do have the true DJI flavor of this. We saw it was $89 on Amazon yesterday, where a cheap Chinese knockoff is $23. I don't know about the quality of the plates and such. I trust the DJI more. This is the top plate, and it's basically just a top plate. So the arms are currently, like I say, washing in the parts washer. It had a little mud on them. And then we'll start building this back up. Now, the reason I did this is when it crashed the last time, I watched this ESC melt the shrink wrap around it, and you can see it's kind of stuck to it. I don't know what may or may not be burn up in there. I just can't take a chance on it. So that's how that ESC lost its shrink wrap. And then another one on the platform just burnt through a little place right there. Now, I'll tell you the truth, these ESCs did seem to function after that. Well, maybe not the condition you saw it in when it crashed. It really had nothing to do with these. But I didn't trust these 6 ESCs that were on it. So when I got the chance, I replaced them. And we're going to build it back up. That's what's going on here, and why I started this build back. May take those caps off of all these. I cut the RC cable off so I could have it for a spare. Cut the motor wires off. These are too short to keep. So that's what's going on. That's where it is today, and I'll figure out what. I think I'm going to build it back with a Maytag 743 wing controller and ArduCopter build with crossfire, and I'm going to run the cameras off the flight controller and all of that. All right, that's what's happening here today. There's the arms out of the parts washer. I have 4 white ones, 2 red ones picked out, the cleanest ones, and I have 4 spare white ones, although some of them aren't the cleanest arms. The parts washer did the best it could. And again, these are all true DJI parts, so I think they're a little more quality than some of the knockoffs. And again, the red ones are labeled DJI. So 1 spare red arm and 4 spare white arms. Almost enough to do. If I had 1 more red arm, I could do another hexa. So there it is. That's basically the physical parts of the flying structure. Going to use a crossfire receiver on it. Overkill. for range, but I do like the way it transmits telemetry, so I'm going to attempt to use it. CRSF. Not sure if that's running in the current version of ArduCopter, but we'll find out. Elsewise, I'll run it S-Bus. I mean, it's not a racing quad or a hexa or anything, so speed is not important. So probably just running it S-Bus would be the simplest. But if I run it CRSF, I can bring back some telemetry, Yahoo type telemetry and stuff. Never got the MAV link over Crossfire running, but I do have the CRSF RC link running. And so I think I'm going to use this Crossfire Nano RC receiver. It's got 4 little pins on it, so I can do ground voltage and S-Bus, or I can do ground voltage and CRSF if I like. And that's all I need. This will have entirely way overkill on range as far as what's needed for the flame wheel. Probably right now I'm thinking I'm going to use the H743 wing because it's got the built-in OSD. Sort of trying out some Maytech parts for change. I've been doing Ardu and 3DR type parts for almost 8 or 9 years, and I'm going to use the little M8Q-CAN GPS just because it wires up to the H743 so easily, and I don't need an airspeed sensor on a quad, so that will be all that's needed. And I will run the little 433 megahertz telemetry radio for telemetry on the quad. That's about all I need, I think, right now. This is the BEC off the flame wheel the way it was, and you'll notice this is pretty old. I can get it straightened out here. It's a 10 amp BEC. That's pretty hot, so I can't really throw a 10 amp away. And 10 amp seems like that's going to run everything I need on the flame wheel. I guess it did before. I'll have to inspect it after the crash really well for any conductor problems, etc., etc. The old ESCs that were on the flame wheel were opto. They didn't have a BEC as part of them. These do have a BEC built into them, so I'm going to have to go into all the connectors and take this center voltage wire and clip it so that none of these can't have 6 ESC sending back voltage to the flight controller. Good Lord. So none of these will be able to send back voltage. I could just have one of the 6 with the center intact, but again, these are, how many? These are like, I guess it doesn't, so doesn't say what the SBEC amperage is. I think it's 2 or 3. I can look it up on the thing real quick. Yeah, the BEC in this is 5.5 volts at 3 amps. It can run a peak of 5 amps. I bet that's not continuous. So I'd rather run the 10 amp BEC that I was already running on the flame wheel, because the old ESCs were Opto, they did not have a BC in them. They did not feed back any power to the flight controller at all. Again, this one being just 3 amps basically. Yeah, I'll take the 10 amp, much more, especially with 6 motors. Well, I guess they aren't pulling on the power for the BEC. Anyway, there's a lot on this. I had LEDs on it, some switches, going to be a couple of cameras. Oh yeah, I'll have to run a video transmitter too. I'll have to figure out my video transmitter. I'm sure I'll just run a 5.8 something, small wattage, because it's not going to be a long range build. Got to get the LEDs from someplace. Don't know if I'm going to run a string of programmable LEDs across all 6. The last time I had red LEDs on the back 2 red legs. I had blue LEDs on the 2 white legs, right and left, and I had green LEDs on the front 2 white arms, and I could turn them on and off ever how I wanted to individually. So I could turn just the red ones on, or just the blue ones, or just the green ones, or any combination of any of the 3 sets, or all of them. I don't know how I'll set this up this time. I did like flying it at night with all the LEDs on it. It was pretty cool. When it was at altitude, I could just turn it out, let it fly in the dark, let the neighbors wonder where in the hell it was, then turn the LEDs back on when it was closer to the ground. And it was just a cinch to fly. This thing flies really well. Okay, I guess I need to set in, taking these motor wires apart and taking the metal part of the connector and soldering them onto the ESCs, and soldering the ESCs to the bottom plate and all that stuff. So let's get started. I am taking the shrink wrap, the old shrink wrap, off the 3 motor wires for the electric motors, so I can put one end of the bullet connector onto the new ESCs. And I'm finding, like this motor, you see that? Did you see that wire fall off? That's how loose these bullet connectors are. This one, it will literally just fall off. So put the bullet connector on and it falls off. So that's not real tight connection, is it? So I'm going to have to clean and inspect this side on all the motors, and I'm checking all the motors. This one I'm going to be taking a ball peen hammer and straightening out this plate. It's really easy to do. I've done it several times on these plates. Can't believe how easily they bend. And then I have to unsolder this part and then solder this bullet connector right here onto the new ESC here. So that's what I'm doing right now, but I was just shocked. And on this particular motor, this outside wire right here is really just not. Look at that. I can put it on and take it off with just the stiffness of this wire. This wire isn't this stiff. This one, not so much. I'm never going to push that back on there. See, just not going to push that one back on there. But this one too could be just, if you line it up, push it on, and like I say, it'll fall off. So I'm going to have to straighten that out when I put this all back together. Kind of crimp those little bullet connectors a little bit to make sure they're getting a good connection. I'm not complaining. This platform didn't have that much of a problem. And it's been 3 or 4 years since I've flown it. We could go back in my videos and find out when the last crash was. Those just aren't going to stay on there. So I've done 4 of the motors so far. And that's some of the little stuff I'm finding as I do these that's not quite what I want. There's the bent motor extension plate. I'm going to have to straighten that. Again, I've done it several times. And I noticed these motors, the only marking on them anymore, or whatever it was, it says Aerial Media Pros. This kit, these more powerful motors, the extension plates, and the 6 ESCs, the ones I just took off, back then were $750. 6 motors, 6 ESCs, and 6 extension plates, and assorted screws. $750. Area Media Pros no longer makes this kit. I don't even think they make any kind of hardware anymore, except for, I think, antennas. Anyway, let me straighten this plate out. Well, that's a few minutes of work with a hammer, old-fashioned work. I think that's pretty straight now, don't you? It's straight enough for me. It's really pretty straight. So we're going to put that back on the motor, and then I have 6 motors, and do up the bullet connectors for the ESCs, get them on the arms. I'll be well down the road. So I'm going in on all 6 of the ESCs and clipping this center wire. I don't want any voltage coming back to the flight controller from the BEC that is in the ESC. So I'm just clipping that, folding it back, clipping it again. I'm doing that to all 6. I'm going to have ground and signal on 6 ESCs. And there's all 6 ESCs in every one of them. 1. Oops. 2. 3. 4. 5. And finally 6. Every one of them has the center red wire or voltage cut. No voltage coming back from the BEC, SBEC in these to the flight controller. Flight controller has its own BEC, which also means I won't be using that 10 amp that's over there either. So, well, that's all for the first day. I will continue this again tomorrow or another day this week. Thank you for watching.